Jake and Mariana are out.
Sure.
All right, awesome. So go ahead and call the shots here. I guess we'll start with the mission moment, right?
Okay, so mission moment. Go ahead, Josh.
Cool. So for the mission moment tonight, I decided to zoom in on the class of 2021 and even further into a special group of students within the class of 2021. Let me share my screen so you can see. Okay, hold on one second. Let's get out of there. Don't need that. Here we go. And share. And here we go. I just made this slide, so it's in draft form. So I'm going to focus in on a group of 3 students. The Wardlow triplets. Looking at the photo here, you'll see 5 of our graduates from the June event. And I think if you look carefully, you can pick out the 3, Jada, Joelle, and Jordy. And so I'm going to tell you a bit about their story. And their story began in 6th grade at our school. Ended at our school this past June at this event, graduation, but continues in college. So I'm going to tell you a bit about what they've been up to and what they experienced over the past 7 years at Unity and moving forward. So Jordy, Joelle, and Jada all immigrated from Jamaica in 6th grade. I can remember this was our 2nd year. And so a few of you knew the school well at that point in time. I can remember walking into the main office and meeting all 3 students as well as their mom. And they were just terrified, all in uniform at the time, and just all 3 crying because they were just nervous about going from home suddenly to some random school in the middle of Brooklyn and finding their way. And so fast forward a bit, over time, they became standout students at our middle school and started to emerge from their shells by playing sports. I think softball and soccer were big sports for them growing up. At the high school, they began or continued to kind of stand on their own. All 3 were in the top 20 of each year of high school academically in their class. They participated in clubs, track and culinary arts and film. They also sought out some additional opportunities like the Health Professions Recruitment Exposure Program and SUNY Downstate Hospital. And our founding chairperson on this board, Richard Pollock, his daughter actually introduced us to that program. And so Jada, Jordy, and Joelle were all founding members or participants in that program. So I should say that all 3 students also had quite a commute to school. They all commuted from the North Bronx each and every day, and that's both going to Williamsburg and then prior to that going to Brownsville. And so they were getting up at 4 in the morning to get to school. And I can remember having a few conversations with mom about like just how rugged that trip was, but they made it work and we made it work. And it was impressive to sort of see them persevere and do their part to be in school each and every day. All 3 earned admission to several colleges in their senior year, and they all chose to attend CUNY Lehman College in the coming year. Each of them is studying a different STEM field and hope to kind of be involved in the medical profession as nurses, doctors, researchers, etc. They all graduated in the top 20 of their class. Jordy, number 5, Joelle, number 10, and Jada, number 15, go figure, all GPAs over 3.68. And so we are obviously very proud of them. I was able to look at one of their senior statements a few minutes ago. I sent it to Melissa, and I'm not going to read it because we don't have the permission to do so, but I just wanted to pick out a couple of quotes that I think are zingers. So one of, I guess this is Jada's. She begins with, "Hey Trip, hey Wardlow," and that was the way in which many of her classmates would refer to her. So it's not to make a mistake because they didn't know who she was in comparison to her sisters. And so she says in her note, "My entire life I've lived as a third of a whole." So she goes on. What's interesting here is she's studying science and her sisters are too. And for Jada, for her, one of the motivations in studying science came from a question. And the question was, why do I look exactly like these 2 other people? How'd that happen? Which is really remarkable. And so all studying science now. She ends her note and says, "I'm committed to remaining open-minded while I continue to combine the best parts of looking for ways I cannot be Jada, the triplet, but just me." So those are some of her latest thoughts as she heads on to college with her sisters. So again, we're proud. And in terms of like our mission, feel as if these three special people, human beings, have lived that, and we're kind of humbled to be a part of their experience. So that's our mission moment for today.
Awesome.
That was a good one, right?
Yeah. For the dedication.
Mhm.
Okay. Head of school report.
Okay, so I'm also going to open that up. Let me make sure I get the right thing here. Yep, there it is. And I've got maybe 5 or 6 areas to highlight or drill down on that I think are important for this meeting tonight. And so let me do so. Oh, and hold on one second. I should have done intros before. Oh my gosh. Let me go back here and go back here and go here, go to my gallery. Where are you, Melissa? There you are. I want to introduce everyone to Melissa Duffney, who I've talked about in prior meetings. We've been able to work together for, I guess this is year 4 we're going into, Melissa, is that right? Wild. She's our chief academic officer this year. Get to work with her closely every day, especially recently. Prior to that, she's worn many hats. Created our AP program from scratch and programmed that out and managed it. And you all know about the program and the way it's grown over the past several years. She was also our history chair, also kind of our lead instructional coach, played a big part in Chelsea's sort of growth as a leader in our first 2 years at the high school. And so excited to have Melissa here, add some firepower to our team on the academic front and elsewhere. And so she'll be taking part in these meetings moving forward. Folks from the SLC got to meet her on Wednesday. And so welcome, Melissa. And you got a chance to kind of meet the team already, but thank you for taking part tonight.
Thanks, Josh. Nice to be here.
So back to school leader report. Let's see, all these different screens. And here we go. So I want to highlight a couple of areas. I think first of all, right now we're in mid-August. It feels like it's September now, but our SLTs at both sites came back fully last week. Schedules are a bit different across sites for a few different reasons, but we kind of kicked things off with regard to planning for full staff last week and the week before, and then we've got our full staff back as of yesterday. So everyone's back in the building and beginning to plan. Obviously, it's a big deal because we've been remote for the past year and a half. I can say for me, as in last week and sort of returning to the building on a regular schedule, that it took a couple of days to get used to. And so our staff are experiencing a lot of that now. And so a lot going on, and it's a big deal. So excited to have people back and reconnect with so many folks, both new and old. And that's where we are. We have our kids coming back on the 8th of September. So we've got about 8 working days to sort of prepare for that. So that's what I kicked off the report with, and that's where we are at this point in time. In thinking about key dates, one that comes to mind is this Thursday. We are going to be presenting to our families some of the ways in which we're going to be running school in the coming year. And so we have a family information night. That comes off of a session we did, 2 sessions we did back in July. Listening and sharing sessions in which we wanted to get a sense of what our families were thinking about, what they were excited about, what they were concerned with, what questions they have. And so from that, we were able to kind of take that and begin and continue to flesh out a plan that we feel is responsive to needs and interests of families and in the best interests of school. So that's happening this Thursday, and we're planning for that now. And some of our discussion tonight will certainly inform that session. In addition to that, I want to talk through vaccination rates. This is the time in which we'll do that. So I got to speak with, I guess, the ECPC committee and our SLC on Wednesday about that. But essentially what you have in the leader report and on the screen now is a summary of some data we collected in early August on the vaccination rates of our families and other information related to vaccinations. And so families is in orange, staff is in blue. What you see here is about 2/3 of our families have responded, and it may be a bit more. I haven't looked at it in a couple of days now. And essentially 21% of our kids are vaccinated coming back to our school as of now, with about 30% intending to be vaccinated by the first day of school or by early September. So that's on the student and family front. And on the staff front, we're looking at something close to 90%. And that's with a sample size of just about everyone, I guess everyone as of now. So that's where we are at this point in time. There's been some new information coming from the city that we'll talk about, requiring all school staff in the DOE system to be vaccinated by late September. And so I want to discuss that with the team later on tonight. And so that's where things stand. Are there questions, clarifying questions, considerations about this sort of latest data and what it might inform? I'm going to move us forward then. And again, I know we had some discussions about this during the committee meetings, so it's okay to not be redundant. I'm going to talk about safety protocols a little bit later in the meeting during the strategic portion of tonight's meeting. And I'm going to also punt tonight on a discussion on core goals and targets. I feel like I want to do that in September now, so we've got some more time to talk about the beginning of school and some of the considerations that we're now devising. And so I guess the last update coming from the leader report relates to vacancies. It's been a weird year, obviously, and there's been a lot going on in people's lives for everyone. In speaking with the SLC this week, in different fields, there's been perhaps more movement than in a typical year, and we've experienced some of that too. And so we have had a couple of staff members over the past month decide not to return to school. And that obviously is hard, and the reasons are varied. But it's been a very different year, and so we're just seeing more of that as people step back and reflect on what their needs are over the coming year and right now. So at this point in time, we've got about 5 vacancies, including a reading interventionist, a math interventionist, which are specialized positions, a math learning specialist, a 9th grade science teacher. We interviewed someone today, so we're active in that, and then a middle school history teacher. And so the last few days have been active with regard to outreach and communication. A few of these positions are new positions for the coming year and allow for us to offer students more in support. And so that's the lay of the land. One of the things kind of keeping us up at night, one of the things that I think takes time. And so I think right now we're more active with regard to outreach than in a typical month, just to sort of fill these vacancies as we start school in about 2 weeks. And we're obviously getting the word out to our staff and having them reach out to their networks. There is a fairly generous referral bonus that has in the past gotten the attention of staff. And so that's been our approach thus far. I guess maybe a question I have for this team is, based on your experiences in your respective fields, are there things that you would add that might benefit our thinking, our approach with regard to connecting with talented educators and bringing them on? More update for tonight. Miscellaneous updates, and just to round things out. So with regard to our PPP loan, current status of that is that our bank did submit it to the SBA for approval, and we expect to hear back within 90 days of whether it's been approved, and we have no reason to believe that it wouldn't be. So that is progress. We are, with regard to portable classrooms, now awaiting DOB approval. As of today, we did have a few objections put forward by the DOB when reviewing our application, and our architect and expediter are now addressing those and then returning them so that we are approved and can move forward with our planning of getting these classrooms in our backyard. So that's the status of where we are there. There's been no moves as of late with regard to expansion of building or potential purchase of building. We'll kick those back off in late September. And let me just make sure. Hey, Madonna, how are you?
Hi, how's everyone doing?
We're doing well on
Good, good.
August Tuesday evening. Just final note here, we did receive a donation of $25K from Nan Rothschild Cooper last month, and I'll have a full report on the fundraising front in September. So that's the added layer of school report for this month. And I guess if there are no questions, I'll kick it back to you, Trudy.
Okay. The data dashboard review.
Cool. There's one update I want to provide there, and I think I will share my screen there too. So let me do this. Give me 1 second to get that up. Pow. And here we are. The one update I want to provide is just with regard to student recruitment. As you know from prior years, this is kind of a big time of year in solidifying and in finalizing our rosters at both sites. And so in the dashboard, and I sent out a better version of that about 15 minutes ago, so you have it in your inbox. I'm looking at table 7. And things really haven't changed from the last month to this month. And communication has continued with our families to ensure that they're set up and ready to go come the first day of school. And so overall, what you see is a likely enrollment. I think in the school report, I said something like 545, and that is the conservative estimate in my mind. If we went just based on communication with families right now, it might be something closer to 555 or 560, but typically there's a dip, and so I don't want to over estimate kind of where I think we'll end up. Budgeted enrollment is 532, so that's still a healthy margin. So we see. Chris, is there anything you add with regard to recruitment at this point in time?
Nope, nothing to add.
Cool. Any questions on where we think we are enrollment-wise as we forge ahead to the first day of school in 21-22? Cool. That's the only update. I'm going to provide a closeout as I have in past years next month. I think just there's kind of a whole lot of planning going on right now at the school, and so the focus has been on that. And I don't see a sort of consequence to holding off on a couple of agenda items for September that in a normal year we might address in August. So we'll hold off on a full sort of like finalization of the dashboard until next month. Back to you, Trudy.
Okay. Strategic planning.
So Melissa, the agenda's sort of heavy on me in the first part of the meeting. It's just, you know, it gets distributed out a bit more toward the middle of the meeting. But here we are, back to me. So with regard to strategic planning, I want to spend some time going over safety stuff. And I think a majority of the time in SLC and ECPC was devoted to safety thinking. So I want to bring it to the full board in a somewhat condensed fashion. Now, let me open back up the school need report. There it is. And I'm just going to scroll up to the blurb on safety protocols. So I think in general, our approach has been to abide by and follow all CDC guidelines, and when it makes sense to go beyond them, given our community's unique needs and interests. And so we start there. The idea is to offer the safest and best educational experience possible to each and every one of our families and kids. And so that is the sort of like motivation or thing we start out with in thinking about the different policies in play. And so what you see here, just the 9 or so things that kind of make the headlines with what we're doing as a school to ensure the safety of our kids, our staff, our stakeholders to the greatest extent possible. It begins with universal mask use inside our buildings, school events, 100% of the time. It continues with staff vaccinations, where as of last week, our approach was to require all staff to either be fully vaccinated or participate in weekly testing. That is where we are now. That is how we're operating. The city, as of, was it only yesterday? Oh my gosh, it was only yesterday, announced that the mayor announced that all school staff, principals, custodians, teachers, guidance counselors, full staff would be required to be vaccinated, I think by the 27th of September. And so right now for us, we are weighing that, and we'll talk a bit about that later on tonight during executive session. I'd like to get some ideas from this team as we formulate our approach. In addition to vaccinations, we are going to be testing regularly students, and we're now debating the approach for that and what's best, whether it's something that's random over the course of the week, whether it's something that involves 10% of our kids over the course of the week, 20% of the course of the week, or perhaps changes depending on needs and things. So there will be regular testing, and it's now identifying the appropriate level. Increased ventilation. We've got purifiers going into our building at the high school. We're responsible for that building, and so that's on us. At the middle school, the DOE has promised to offer purifiers in every classroom. There has been, unfortunately, some back and forth with the DOE and us as a charter, and whether we are able to use DOE purifiers. Unfortunate in the event that something comes about where we cannot use the purifiers that are being offered by the DOE, we'll purchase our own. And actually, we've made that purchase, and so it's in process now, just as a proactive measure. Cleaning and disinfecting, as we did last year, we will upgrade that and do so with CDC guidelines in effect to make sure that we're doing so with the frequency we need and in the level that we need to. With regard to physical distancing, CDC guidelines are, I guess, first and foremost, that it's important to have kids in school. So starting there, and then from there, physically distancing to the greatest extent possible is our interpretation of what is being recommended. And that can be a bit hairy or ambiguous, but that's what we're doing, offering the greatest physical distancing we can in different settings of our school at different times in our schools. So what I've done is I've offered a few of the settings that come to mind for us. The middle school, we've got a fairly spacious setup. Classrooms are much bigger, hallways are bigger. We do share a gym and a cafeteria and an auditorium, which makes things a little more complex in terms of how you share and how you sort of lean on the other party to make sure that we're all keeping our community safe. At the high school, this is sort of on us, and the space is smaller. And so there are some additional layers of complexity there, which again, we'll talk about a bit later tonight. Let me pause there and see if there are any questions. We did talk about this again in committees this past week, but are there any considerations or questions that have come up, maybe things that we talked about on Wednesday that I have not talked about tonight that's important to also bring to the full board? All right, to round things out, at the 6th and 7th grade level, since the very beginning of our school, and this is true of most schools, we have cohorted students, meaning that students, for the most part, travel from class to class with the same group of students. And so from a safety standpoint, and in the COVID era, that means that there's less kind of exposure or contact with more people. And that's a good thing because with those limitations, the likelihood of maybe having contact with someone who has a positive case is less. And so that's a recommended feature by the CDC. And so we will do that with the 6th and 7th grade. We're thinking about doing that in the 8th grade and very well might. And then we're also doing some thinking about what that might look like at the high school. In the 8th grade at the high school, it's a little more challenging. What we've typically done in a regular year is had students have their own unique schedules. And so you might be in biology class, period 1, with a group of students, and then have global history period 2 with a different group of students. And so there's more exposure, and there are more students you're interacting with over the course of a period, over the course of a day. And so that's the difference between cohorting and not cohorting. And from a safety measure, limited exposure is better. And so we will do that to the greatest extent possible. And then finally, daily screenings, which essentially involves a questionnaire and a temperature check. Those are things that we've had at our school sites over the course of the past year and a half. We will continue with that as a way of proactively kind of getting a sense of health levels as students and staff come in. And so that's where we are now. That's the report out. Much of this will be reported out tomorrow or Thursday evening to our families during the information sessions, with a few additional levels of information with regard to things like quarantining and contact tracing, et cetera. So more to say there. We'll talk about that during the closed session later on this evening. So I'm going to end it there. That's the strategy. That's the approach and the proactive end of things as of now. Unless there are burning questions or ideas, maybe things you've heard that you think would be a best practice that you don't see here, open to them. Cool. So I think with that, back to you, Trudy.
Okay, committee report. Would you like to start with AFC first?
Alex is going to be on in just a moment if you want to start with another one.
Cool. So I think let's go to DFC then. I think so we'll keep things short tonight. With DFC, our discussion during that committee meeting really centered on some of the elements of our safety protocol, and so it's good to kind of chat with team and get different insights and perspectives based on experiences. And so that was most of the meeting. We also discussed some kind of goals and a few activities kind of going on now. I don't think there's anything that we want to bring to the full board tonight for discussion, but I thank everyone for taking part in that call.
Okay. ECPC?
Oh, and actually, I was confused. The what I just provided was related to ECPC, not DFC.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'll rewind, make that correction, then jump back to DFC. We didn't convene for a call this past month. There were some conflicts, but we did convene via email. The two elements in the email were just an update on where we are with our portable classrooms, which I've reported out to this team tonight in the intro. And then we also talked about some goals for DFC. So some goals related to facilities, what we would like to see the school achieve and governance achieve over the course of the year. And we also did that for development and fundraising too. So I think the best thing to do is to bring each of these goals to the board in September and hold off from discussing them tonight. Sal, let me know if you feel differently about that. I think you're here representing the DFC tonight.
Sorry, someone's at my front door. It was 3 stories down, so I just ran back.
It's all right. So we're good. I think we're good. Back to you, Trudy.
I saw your email though about going through what you were going to discuss about DFC, and that was all. It all made sense, by the way.
Yep.
Okay. SLC?
Cool. So I think during that meeting, and Jeanette, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we did discuss safety protocols at length. We also talked about just events which are in. Oh, here's Alex. We talked about kind of recent events at the school. Just a quick share out there, And then we did talk about kind of goals for the coming year that, as I said, we'll discuss in more detail in September. In addition to that, we discussed some AP trajectory things over the past 3 years, and then early results this year. And then we closed out with a discussion on what we're doing new as we approach the coming year around assessments. So I'm going to let Melissa take a couple minutes just to quickly share out general headlines there.
And Josh, I see on the screen still safety protocols, so I'm just doing this verbally.
Yeah, that's fine. If you want me to, I've got the slides up too if you want me to move to them.
That's fine. I'm new here, so I'm just making sure that I'm doing the right thing. Okay, so we have a couple of things that we are zooming in on during the summer. One is, I'll start with STAR. Last year, we introduced the STAR exam. This is a company and national exam that is given to assess students in reading and math skills. We chose this one because they have the longest track record of high school assessments as well. So the beauty of this exam is that it's going to give us longitudinal data as well as some granular data that we can plan from. And this year is exciting because we'll now have some year-over-year comparison data. We looked a little bit about at that data and how students did last year. We don't know if this is typical for Unity students or not, of course, because this is only the second year we'll be giving this. But we saw that on average within their bands, students moved about a 50th percentile compared to students who were performing similarly to them at the beginning of the year. This year, we are pivoting to use some of this data in our interventions, especially at the middle school. We're building those to high school as well and using those student services. And we'll be launching it and giving it 3 times a year so we can do some comparison data. So that's new over 2 years, and then this year the comparison piece will be really exciting. And ideally, we're hoping students will be taking these in classrooms so we can get some really strong completion data at all 3 phases of the year when we take this. So that's one, that's in STAR. The second is around our regular assessment systems. This summer, we've had leaders really digging into looking at the quality of assessments. We've introduced an assessment cover page tool that allows leaders to self-analyze what they're asking students to do to make sure that they are assessing the most important skills. They're assessing those exam over exam, spiraling, and devoting the right amount of time and structure of exam to the skills that are most important to content. I think we've all learned over the last year that prioritizing within content is really important and knowing what's most essential for students and most essential for adults to look at from students. So that summer work is allowing us to launch into a really tight assessment cycle throughout this year, which we've planned out. We'll also be working as leadership teams to begin looking at student work cycles where we're building our muscle to really see what kids are producing and identify the strongest next steps. So that's what the academic team has been, the foundations we've been putting in place this year so that we have some really strong data to report out to y'all in this section in the future. Josh, you're on mute.
Thanks, sir. Sorry, thanks, Melissa. Madonna, Jeanette, anything to add with regard to our discussion on Wednesday?
No, I think that covered it.
Cool.
Sorry, same here. Yeah, I think that covered everything.
Cool. Back to you, Trudy.
Okay, so we're up to AFC now, or?
Yeah, Alex is here. Alex, how are you?
I'm doing well, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Happy Tuesday evening.
Indeed.
So here you go. You've got your 3 or 4 minutes of fame with regard to a share out on, I guess, the preliminary closeout of the 2021 school year as of June 30th.
Absolutely. Do you want me to share my screen? Do you have the
Yeah,
report?
sure. Let me give you access. Actually, Chris, do you have to do that? I'm unable to offer co-host, but you
You should have it, Alex.
Okay. Okay, so just quickly, this is the preliminary June 30th kind of year-end financial. It is unaudited. There may be some minor adjustments here and there, but I don't expect to see anything remarkable over the next couple of weeks as we make our year-end changes. Our days cash on hand right now is at 36. Now that excludes the PPP loan fund money. Including that, we're sitting at 82 days cash on hand. In terms of the P&L and any changes over the course since we met last month, any variances we see throughout the year, we've been tracking consistently, has been ongoing. So what we're looking at for year end is a net income of about $200,000, which is within less than $10,000 of what had been projected previously. No major changes to address on that end of it. Like I said, we'll have some adjustments, particularly around the PPP loan. We have applied for forgiveness. The bank recommended full forgiveness. So that's been sent over to the SBA. Once that is forgiven, we will have an adjustment to the accrued interest that we've been booking. So, you know, a change of about $12,000 to $15,000 that will come back into our net income. And then as we look at cash going forward, so at the end of June, beginning of July, we had about $2.7 million cash in the bank less our escrow. We have a contribution that will be incoming that is not in cash yet, and that's the $238,000 there. And then we have some disbursements expected through the month of July into August. We were being conservative because we had a large expenditure for the parking lot that we knew was coming up, but that has since been paid in August, and we'll see that included in the next month of reporting. That's pretty much it. Any questions?
Great. Thank you, Alex.
Okay, thank you.
And
Okay. Okay, so we're up to the annual board items for approval. So the first one up is minutes from the meeting on July 20th, 2021.
And Chris sent those out earlier today, so you'll have those in your inbox.
Has everybody have the chance to read it?
I'm seeing lots of very excited nods.
Okay. All in favor? For approval? Let's see. Okay.
What you'll also see there is if you recall, we didn't a quorum last meeting, and so there are also the minutes for the June meeting, as well as an agreement with CSBM that are being transferred over this meeting as well for approval. I think we may have discussed those at the last meeting, but if we didn't, we can open those back up.
And I also see here minutes from June's meeting as well.
Yep.
Okay. Up for approval? Okay. And the agreement with CSBM for the 21 to 22 school year?
Chris, do you want to provide some headlines here, just even what we discussed on Friday?
Sure, absolutely. So we're hoping to continue a light contract with CSVM through the school year just to perform additional systems of checks and balance for the work that we're now doing 98% internally. Alex has been incredible so far, but would love it, especially that they're industry standard. They've got their hands in multiple charter schools. So just an additional system of checks and balances and support if we run into any questions throughout the year. So far, since July 1st, we've been using them on like an hourly basis, and it'll continue being hourly, but CSBM would prefer to, and I understand why, to have something signed. If we ever do get up to that amount that's in the contract in a given month, CSBM will let us know well in advance. But so far, we've been using them even a lot less than that contract. So it's even very possible that we won't reach the 20,000 threshold for the year. But in case we do, I just wanted to be able to have that support from CSBM.
Jeanette, anything you'd add there?
Nope, I think Chris covered it.
So back to you, Trudy, for approval.
Okay, all in favor?
And then the last item here, I guess, I think I'd like to sort of set folks up a bit more for this and give people a heads up. But I think every year we review our conflict of interest sort of statements and then have people sign off on them. I think, Jeanette, if it makes sense to you to hold off on this until September, I don't see a consequence to that. Is that okay if we just do it then?
Yeah, that's fine. And I think we can email them around in the meantime so people can look at them in advance of the meeting if they want.
Cool. Chris, can you maybe have that emailed out this coming week?
Will do.
Okay. So no, that will not be up for approval tonight.
Okay. Next item up would be public comment.
We have thousands of people tuning in via YouTube tonight, but I think the comment is minimal.
All right.
And so then with regard to next month's meeting, let's see. So in addition to some of the things we're pushing out to September that I've mentioned already, looking at the governance schedule that we've created, something that we haven't addressed that we typically do around this time of year is a board self-assessment. Like, hey, how are things going? How can we think about even being better as a team in our governance systems here? And so there's a survey that folks typically complete. Jim then takes a look at that, and then there's a discussion in executive session during the next meeting. So I think the plan here would be to get that survey out to this team and then have team members complete the survey in time to then synthesize that information and have a discussion next month. In addition to that, Josh Phillips, who's my executive coach, and you've all had a chance to meet, did provide this past spring, this was early spring, he's attended maybe 4 of these meetings over the past 2 years, and we get to talk a lot. And so he's also been on various boards, both in a seat similar to mine, as well as seats similar to yours as board members. And so his insights are pretty strong. And so he volunteered with Jim's request to provide some feedback to the team on ways in which he thought this board was incredibly strong and ways in which we might kind of continue to focus and even be better. So I'll provide that out too so people can see that, and that can then inform your own reflections as you complete the survey on your own. Sound good? So that's next month. And I'm sure, look, we're going to be, one more note. So I think right now the meeting is scheduled for like the second week of September. And I want to say maybe even, let me look at my calendar. I think it's set for the 14th, and I like to push things out by a week. Our first day of school is the 8th, and I'd like to experience school a little bit more before then reconvening with the committees and board. I think that would make for a more impactful series of committee meetings and general meetings. So I'd like to propose that we move committee meetings out by a week and board meetings out by a week. Apology, I know I did this month too, but I just think that's the best use of our time. So unless there are objections, we'll change the calendar invites so they reflect that rescheduling. Cool. I'm seeing some nods, so we'll do that too. Chris, if you could have that done, you command the calendar, so I'll let you check each of those out. Thanks. And so I think that's it. So I think right now we can go with that. We can go offline and go into executive session. Chris, if you could take part tonight, I'd love for you to take part, and Melissa, you too, in a discussion about a couple of things. So Chris, let us know when you're ready.
Absolutely. Josh,